Today's reading comes from Luke 10, starting in verse 38. Now as they went on their way, Jesus entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. She had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teaching. But Martha was distracted with much serving. She went up to him and said, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Tell her then to help me." But the Lord answered her, "Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken from her."
Nice, Josh. Thank you for reading. That's good. One of my favorite passages is just on. There we go. Good morning. Yeah, it's one of my favorite passages. It's just packed with relevant information for our culture because we live in a distracted culture. How many times you pull out your phone to do one thing, and then 15 minutes later, you're looking at motorcycle crashes or trees falling on people's pickups, which is the best, by the way, right? Anyway, it just happens. So we're going to be diving into that. It's a good passage. But before we do that, we are Grace Life Bible Church. Our four main values are knowing God through His Word, it's experiencing His grace, and then naturally extending that grace. And then we grow in healthy relationships, and we impact those near and far. It's all sort of a Jesus-driven empowerment thing. It's not like, oh, I have to do all this stuff to make God happy, all right? So we're happy about that. But today, kind of a twist here, Mary shows up to be a grateful receiver, and Martha's kind of trapped in this weary achiever mode. You know what I mean? We've been talking about that line about we are grateful receivers, not weary achievers, and you can kind of see some tendencies here. And so we'll unpack that later. But if you're new or just tuning in, we this summer have been doing a short series called Wisdom, Worship, and Worry. We kind of bounce around passages and just talk about something in those themes. And today, we hit all three of those, right? Because we're going to talk about the wisdom of how to navigate life and not get distracted, okay? How to keep the main thing. And then worshiping Jesus is one of the main things. Trusting Him is the main thing. And then worry, we can worry about what other people think and all that, and we'll see that clearly in the passage here. But this is the deal. What is the main thing? All right, that's the question. If I said complete the sentence, the main thing is to keep the main thing. That's kind of what we're doing, but we're asking the question, what is the main thing? And we'll answer that, all right? So I was reading a book a while ago. I've mentioned this book before. It's called Blessed Are the Misfits. It's written by a guy named Brant Hansen. Anyway, good book. I just got a page here to read. It's just classic. It's about how when we're in small groups praying, how your mind can drift. It's just great. Okay. So he says, this is my usual mental monologue when I'm in a small group praying. Okay, Brant, focus on what this guy's saying. Yes, Lord, help his grandma who's sick with cancer. I've never met her, but Lord, please help her. And I kind of miss my own grandma. She was pretty awesome. Oh, man, she used to make these Cocoa Krispies for us. My mom would never let us have that, but Grandma did, and I loved how they turned the milk brown. Or wait, was it Cocoa Puffs? Do Cocoa Puffs turn the milk brown? Man, I'd love to have some Cocoa Puffs right now. Sounds so good. Or Cookie Crisps. That stuff was crazy good. It's like pouring milk over a bowl of cookies for breakfast. Wow. Oh, and Lord, please help the lady who's praying right now, and her aunt who also has cancer. That's horrible. I feel bad. I don't even know this lady's name. Charla, Shireen, something like that. My sister-in-law is named Charla. I wonder how she's doing. I love what my sister and brother-in-law named our cat, Chairman Meow. That's the best, Chairman Meow. Chairman Meow is so funny. Next time I have a cat, I want to find something like that and name it. Some kind of historical reference, like the zoo that named the camel Alexander Camelton. That's so awesome. Oh, wait, it's quiet now. What's going on? Are they waiting on me? Okay, I'm going to pray out loud. I got to say something quick. Who do I know has in the hospital? Maybe I'll pray about something else. I don't know. I just like to thank God for the stuff, but now I'm all in my head. Am I praying so other people can hear me, or am I actually talking to God? I don't want to pray out loud if it's just so others can hear me. Maybe that's okay. I don't know. I guess I'll just clear my throat and start. Oh, okay, Steve started. I'm off the hook. Cool. Well, God, thank you for whatever Steve is talking about. And wow, I guess we're wrapping up in Jesus' name. We're done. Anyway, it's just so funny because it's kind of true, right? I mean, I don't know how many times, certainly with the phone, we can all relate to that. But if you're even in a conversation, my wife and I sometimes, we'll have a little conversation and it pauses and I go to 14 other places and then she continues the conversation, but I've totally forgotten, what are you talking about? And she looks at me like, it's been 4 seconds. You know what I mean? Anyway, so that's just part of the deal. Okay, so we are a distracted people in a distracted culture, and we could all use some skill and the wisdom of staying on task. In fact, if I asked you what's the opposite of distraction, you might say maybe focus. But that's not really the opposite. The opposite of distraction is traction. Okay, distraction pulls us away from the center. It turns us away from the main thing to anything else. Traction is the thing that keeps us kind of focused, but keeps the main thing, okay? And so Josh read the whole passage we're going to look at here, and I thought it'd be fun to take 3 minutes and see a video passage acted out. Okay, so here's the same setting. Luke 10, 38 to 42.
It seems you didn't notice my sister has left me to serve alone. From the moment you got here, she hasn't done a thing to serve you. She's completely ignored everything I've been doing to make all of you comfortable, and it's clear that she's not going to notice how hard I'm working on her own. The only thing that could change it is if you tell her to help me.
Martha, please, sit down here with me.
How can I sit? Only half your followers have been served. We can discuss this later. I'm sorry.
I know, but I want others to hear this. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. You've done a wonderful thing. You are anxious and troubled about many things, and it is not for nothing. Hospitality will always matter, and I am grateful for what you have done.
It's what you deserve, and more.
Your intention is well-meaning, but only one thing is truly necessary. The best way to serve me is to pay close attention to my words. That is the priority. That is what your sister has chosen. It is a good portion, and it will not be taken from her.
Taken?
The food, the servings, they are wonderful. But they'll pass away with the rest of this world. My words, they'll never pass away. Mary has chosen to feast on something of eternal value. I want you all to hear this clearly. I do not rebuke Martha. Acts of service are beautiful. Action is good. You're doing what you thought was expected of you. And what you do is valuable. And Mary probably could have helped a little. But listen, I don't want you distracted from being able to be present with me and the friends that I have brought. I'm inviting you to something that is better. To sit at my feet. Listen carefully to my words. And devour them as a meal more nourishing than actual food.
I think that's pretty good. Kind of captures a lot of the dynamics. I love it that Jesus said that Mary could have helped out a little bit. Sometimes we look at this passage, if you're a task-oriented type A person like me, you're just like, I'm going to get beat up because it's just so wrong to do things That's not the point here. The point isn't women. The point isn't how dumb housework is. The point is discipleship, and a disciple of Jesus prioritizes time with Jesus. That's what's going on here. So the same message would apply to men if men were here. So it's a universal message, okay? So just that's where we're going. Let's go to number 1. 3 points, of course. How do we keep the main thing the main thing? We keep the main thing. The main thing is trusting Jesus, okay? How do we keep that the main thing? By being willing to be countercultural, all right? In this culture, women were not part of that discipleship rabbi thing at all right? Not what's going on there. So we go to verse 38, Luke 10. Now, as they went on their way, Jesus entered a village. We know this is Bethany from John. And a woman named Martha welcomed him into her house, and she had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teaching. Right away, you've got Martha saying, my house. Look at my house. Welcome to my house. And Mary is right away just sitting and listening to Jesus. Isn't that interesting? And that's just kind of their proclivities, how they're wired, what they value, their main thing. And so that's okay. So here's Bethany. I got a map here. Jerusalem, Bethany, only 1.8 miles away. And Bethany was really more of like a suburb. Some archaeologists even think it wasn't a whole town by itself. It was sort of just a suburb that people would walk back and forth. 1.8 miles to Jerusalem, the big city. And so topographically, if you're going to go from Jerusalem, you have to go up the Mount of Olives, up a big trail, crest that, and then go down into Bethany and back and forth. A lot of walking in those days. That's just what they did. But anyway, this is where Lazarus will be raised in a couple weeks, after the story. And Simon the leper lives here. Later on, Mary anoints Jesus' feet with her hair and the whole expensive nard perfume. That's all happened in Bethany. Pretty cool place. All right? So, anyway, it says, Mary sat at the Lord's feet listening to his teaching. And to sit at someone's feet is an idiom that was used of a disciple following their rabbi, their main teacher. Paul said, I sat at the feet of Gamaliel, the main Pharisee. And so he was a disciple, he followed. And so it's not just that Mary's like, oh, the seats are taken, I'll just sit here. No, she is positioning herself as a disciple of Jesus, okay? And that's just super weird because in this culture, the disciple-rabbi relationship was not open to women. Because the path of a disciple, they had a lot of the formal education. They have a lot of formal steps, and I'll just run through these. When a little boy was 5 to 10 years old, they would put him in what's called Beth Safar, House of the Book. They would meet 5 days a week, and in those 5 years, they would memorize the Pentateuch: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. 10 years old, you can just quote that, but you can ask all kinds of questions and back and forth. By this point, most kids are maxed out. That's all they can do, and then they go back to their families. They make pottery or go fishing. That's just what they do. But if you're super smart, you go to the next level, which was Beth Talmud, House of Learning. So 10 to 14-year-olds would come here, memorize Psalms, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon, Daniel, and everything else. So literally by the time they're 10 years old, 14 years old, they would have memorized the Old Testament. And it's not just kind of barely able to spit it out with remember back in college, you cram your head full of stuff and no one talk to me because I'm barely hanging on to it. It's all going to fall apart like a house of cards. Maybe that was just me. But anyway, these people knew everything inside and out. In fact, they had that whole question and answer thing. They wouldn't just say, what's 2 plus 2? Because in our culture, we'd say 4. It is 4, by the way. But in this culture, somebody would say, well, what's 25% of 16? So the student would think the answer is 4, and then he would phrase a question back to his rabbi, what's 25%? And that would show, I know the answer, but I also understand it enough to create another question based on, that gets to the same answer. Anyway, it was just very deep learning, okay? And this is the stage that Jesus was at when he wandered off in the temple. They found him asking questions to the rabbis there. So he's acting right here at this level of the Beth Talmud, all right? And then after that, the very best of the best was Bet Midrash, house of study. And this is 14 years old. You would leave your family, leave your community. You would find a rabbi, a teacher, and every rabbi had a slightly different way of interpreting the Old Testament, how to live, how the law mattered, and all this. In the past, I've mentioned Hillel and Shammai, right? Shammai is very strict, and you can't do this, you can't do that, and Hillel is very liberal. And so you're growing up, and you're like, oh, I like Rabbi so-and-so, and you would follow him and ask him, I want to be your disciple. And he would grill you. He's like, okay, in the book of Habakkuk, give me all 4 references to Deuteronomy in order, and boom, boom, boom. It's just, you have an insanely thorough understanding of Scripture. And he would say, follow me, be covered in my dust, and be my disciple. And then everybody would celebrate, It's like, hey, where's your son? He's not home. He's with Rabbi so-and-so. I mean, that's a big deal, okay? So it would be a highest honor. So now, this verse from Matthew 11, listen to this verse. It probably will take on a different meaning. Jesus says, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened. I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. They called it, that when they followed a rabbi, his unique interpretation of Scripture was the yoke. That's what they're talking about. And so the Pharisees had 613 laws added. It's just complicated and heavy and difficult, impossible. And Jesus is like, well, I've perfectly fulfilled the law, and by simply believing in me, my righteousness is imputed to you, and so my burden is easy. It's light. Okay, this is what's going on here. And so this explains a number of things. It explains how our obedience can be a response to what he's already done, not an effort to try to achieve something, which is a beautiful thing about Christianity, right? We love because he first loved us, right? That's just the way it is. So our obedience is grounded in gratitude and a reflection of what he's already done. And it also explains back then why these disciples, have you ever read the Gospels? And Jesus is like, hey, I'm wandering through the wilderness, and guys, follow me. And they just drop everything and run after him, and they just disappear from home. And this is why. Because if they're fishing, they've already been rejected from that 3 stages of education. They can't cut bed midrash. They don't have the Old Testament memorized, which kind of shows up as they navigate with Jesus, right? They're not quite at that level. I'm just saying, okay? So if they're fishing with mom or dad, they got flushed out of the system. And now here's a rabbi that says, you have a chance to come with me. So they drop everything, they go with Jesus, and then we have the New Testament, all right? Okay, but all that to say, that whole system is not for women. That's just not how it works in this culture, okay? But here we have women disciples of Jesus. You have Joanna, you have a couple Marys, a lot of people. So anyway, and some women have money. They're paying for the ministry out of their own money that they control. So that's kind of unusual in that culture. And then the backbreaker is women traveling with men, following Rabbi Jesus, staying in strange towns, not with relatives. I was reading a book about this, and it said, there is no place in traditional Middle Eastern society where this would be possible. Women just don't travel with men and stay in random cities with random people. Absolutely forbidden. And so the fact that Jesus is tolerating, inviting this, of course, the Pharisees are going to lose their ever-loving mind, right? And it seems, if you want a mental picture of this, if you've seen the movie The Jesus Revolution, which I, again, highly recommend, it's very, very good, these people are acting like Jesus Revolution hippies. They're bending social rules, they're breaking social norms, and they're making people upset, but they're following Jesus in the best way that they know how, okay? Kind of countercultural. I had a prof once that said, the more you are like your culture, the less you can influence it for Jesus. Think about that. If you're so much like the culture, you have no message. And if you're so different from the culture, you have no audience. No one's listening, right? And there's a continuum there for sure. I mean, some people are here and we get nervous about them, and some people are here. Anyway, so that's just the way that works. We don't want to be too critical of that because the Lord uses a lot of different people in different ways. So the first thing is being countercultural, all right? The second thing, we can keep trusting Jesus as the main thing by becoming curiously aware of how we are wired and what distracts us. We don't choose our proclivities, we choose our activities. I have a certain personality, happen to be task-oriented. I love to-do lists, you know what I mean? And I love lists, all kinds of lists, and that's just how I'm wired. Other people don't. We know some people far away to different galaxies, so don't wonder if they're not next to you. But super they enjoyed hospitality, right? And people are always over. A house is a mess, a complete mess. But joy and always sharing, and people are spending the night, and I'm like, how can you live? It's just different wiring, okay? And God is blessing them in that, and that's totally fine. So we don't want to fall into the error that Martha makes here, and I'll get to that in a second, okay? So number 2 here, verse 40. Martha was distracted with much serving, that much word, very important, and she went up to Jesus and said, Lord, don't you care? My sister's left me alone to serve. Tell her to help me. I think there's a bit of attitude there, and I think that captured it very well. She's like wrapped around the axle, okay? It's important to keep the main thing, because people don't decide their futures. We decide our main things, and our main things decide our habits, and our habits determine our future, right? So whatever our main thing is going to shape our habits, and habits shape our future, all right? Another quote from a book, what you think about, you'll care about. What you care about, you chase. So it all starts there, okay? So Martha liked to serve. She's wired that way. 2 mistakes we're going to highlight here that we can all relate to. The mistake is not that she served or worked. You see Jesus, he's affirming that. Action is great. But in this unique situation, she was distracted. Anytime you're distracted, that means there's something in the center, and you're pulled from it to something else, right? It's from one thing to another thing. Distracted. And so you want to ask yourself, when you're distracted, what are you distracted to? You may be distracted to something that other people find zero interest in. And that's, again, because we're wired and we have our proclivities, our tendencies, okay? She was distracted with much serving. She could have chosen to do a little serving. She could have pulled out paper plates and Pop-Tarts. Like, everybody, just want to maximize time. Jesus is here. Let's just get right to Jesus. Here's a Pop-Tart. Okay? Whatever. The second error is, I love this, don't you care? I mean, her attitude is, and in Greek, there's a thing that indicates she is asking this 100% thinking Jesus is going to join her in this attack on Mary. She is like, obviously, hello, this is the important thing. My task should be your task. My task should be her task. Everybody should be like me, but I'm the only one working here. Hello? I mean, she's got a bit of a burr in her saddle, okay? And so that's, and if I could put some words in Martha's mouth, here's what she might roll off with. I don't like her values, how she lives her life, how she spends her time, how she spends her money, always neglecting the real tasks for quiet times of reading and reflection, not productive stuff. I'm the only one that gets things done. I'm tired and behind. I need help. I'm just thinking that might be close. I'm not sure. Maybe she'll scold me when I get to heaven. I don't know. Anyway, but what's Martha's main thing? It's serving and hospitality. Again, coming from a great heart, very appropriate. But in this unique time and situation, Jesus, God on earth, happens to be here. That's kind of a big deal. It's time for paper plates and Pop-Tarts, right? Let's focus on Jesus, okay? She doesn't have that perspective. Mary's main thing is just reflection. She just wants to listen to music, and she's not worried, like a hippie, not worried about the next meal. Everything's going to work out, and that's her main thing, much to the annoyance of Mary. When you entertain people at your home, what's the main thing? Is it the food, the setting, how you're viewed? Do you clean the house like crazy, like to a level of cleanliness that it hardly ever is at? You know what I mean? I find it kind of refreshing when you go to someone's house and it's just a bit not perfect. I can relax. I'm like, you're comfortable with me coming into your home, because my home's usually not perfect, you know what I mean, ever. And so it's real. I like that. Or is your main thing your guests? I want you to feel comfortable and have a good time. What if having everything not perfectly put away is a way to serve your guests and help them relax. I guess you got to know your guests. I can't mandate that. But anyway, I was just saying, okay? So trusting Jesus is the main thing. And why are there differences with Mary and Martha? Same family, they're sisters, same upbringing. If you have kids, you're like, how did this happen? Like, this is the same family, and they're different. It's fun, all right? So everybody has a unique mind, emotion, and will, and those things show up in different social situations, and certainly Satan knows how to get to us through our mind, emotions, and will, right? Maybe some people are more prone to intellectual arguments, theological big structures, the mind thing. They can't answer all the questions, and maybe they reject Jesus because they can't figure this out. Some people with the will, a stubborn will of pride and difficulty will reject, and others emotions. Maybe it's the pain over yesterday or worry over tomorrow or just the feel-good emotions of today, and they can... So our mind, emotions, and will, Satan knows the buttons for each one of our personalities, what to push. And are you aware of how you are distracted? That's the question we're asking today, okay? Jesus is helping Martha understand this is how you're wired, and it's a God-given gift. In this particular situation, you want to be driven by allegiance to me and not your gift of serving. And Mary, she could have helped that too, all right? So here's a verse. I like this verse. James, each person, look at this. Each person is tempted when he's lured and enticed by his own desire. Different for everybody, his own desire. Then desire, when it's conceived, gives birth to sin. And sin, when it's fully grown, brings forth death. But his own desire. We all have desires that are different, and Satan uses these things. And a lot of times we're blind to them. Martha had to have Jesus go, have a seat. Here's the deal. You know what I mean? And it can be kind of troubling and deeply threatening when you come to the place where you're understanding my worldview, how I perceive myself needs to be adjusted. Because we're like, whoa, wait a minute. I'm not okay? Well, no, Jesus is okay, and he loves you the way we are. But we can adjust and move to be more like him. Okay. So, like I said before, do you know your personal proclivities that get you distracted through your mind, maybe your emotions, your will, or a combination thereof? What we can do is to guard our emotions and our mind and our will is we need to know God and his word, experience his grace, grow in healthy relationships, and then impact others naturally. If we could just find a church that would do those things. Yeah. The people that laughed know the values. Anyway, that's good. That was, all right, you'll get that tomorrow. Anyway, so we do want to build a structure, a grid, a process of dealing with our own distraction. Knowing my proclivities, this is how I'm likely to get distracted. And then what can I do in my own life and you in your life to help gain traction, to stay in the center with Jesus in those moments and situations. So this is your lunchtime assignment, all right? Everyone's going to have lunch, maybe, most people. Ask each other, how do you get distracted? When you're distracted, what generally speaking, what are you distracted to? You know what I mean? That's just kind of a fun question to ponder and think about. Okay, let's go back to Luke 10 here. There's a cultural clash going on. They're in Bethany, the house of Lazarus, Martha and Mary. They're brother and sister. Lazarus, Mary and Martha, brother and sisters. And where's Mary? She sat at the Lord's feet, listened to his teaching. She's seated with the male disciples, acting like a man in that culture, pretending to be like she has a shot at Beth Midrash, becoming a rabbi, okay? There is actually in the Jewish Mishnah kind of an oral commentary in the whole Old Testament. Here's a saying: "Let your house be a meeting house for the sages, and sit amongst the dust of their feet, and drink in their words with thirst." So this is part of their culture. If you have a sage, a rabbi, sit at his feet and soak in their words. This is exactly what Jesus is trying to talk about. But it's normal for the men to sit at the feet of Rabbi and soak it in, and here comes Mary. And they had to kind of do a double take, right? I'd be like, what? Okay. It would be a socially sideways kind of deal, all right? And it does not sit well with Martha. Her angst is not driven by like, I have 13 potatoes to peel, I've only peeled 7, I need help with the rest. That's not what's really driving her angst. She is probably staring at Mary, thinking, why are you sitting with the men, acting like a disciple in this world where we don't do that? How is she going to be perceived by others? What are other people going to think of my sister, little hippie religious girl who wants to marry a girl like that? Is she ever going to get married? And what do people think of me? We're in the same family. You know what I mean? It's just we can spin things into bigger things than they really are, right? All right. So my little sister has neglected her culturally assigned role for hostess. She's acting like a man in this band of men, acting like a disciple of Jesus, like she actually can become, a rabbi. So she's worried about a lot of things, all right? Number 3, choosing to live the life God has given you with the God who is giving it to you. We can keep trusting Jesus as the main thing by Mary chose the good portion. Choosing to live life with God, choosing to live the life God has given you with the God who has given it. So focusing on him. And this is verse 41. But the Lord answered her, Martha, Martha, you're so anxious and troubled about many things. One thing is necessary. Mary's chosen the good portion, which will not be taken from her. Here's a paraphrase. Martha, Martha, you're anxious and troubled about many things. I understand the entire list. There's really only one thing that's needed right now. What's missing here is not one more place setting or more food, which will be gone later, but rather for you to understand that I am providing a lasting spiritual meal through my teaching. Your sister has chosen that lasting meal, and unlike a normal meal, my teaching is the good portion that will never be taken from her. Martha, right now, a good student is what I need, not just a good meal. That's kind of the gist of what he's talking about. So Jesus doesn't tell Mary to help out. He tells Martha to chill out. I thought that might be a fun title, too. Help out or chill out. But anyway. And the choices here, the choices are not good, bad. It's good and better. All right? So what Martha's doing is not bad. It's just there's a better way to be a disciple of Jesus when you're sitting next to Jesus. Okay? That's the deal. All right? And I love it that the right thing isn't really to work harder, to work longer. Here, the right thing is not to work at all. It's to sit and listen to Jesus. And we're in a culture that we're go, work. You know what I mean? And we need to hear sometimes the right move as a disciple of Jesus is to not work harder and longer, but to sit and listen to him. And that is difficult. It just is, because our everything's beeping in our world. We've got stuff to do, right? You almost have to go away to a lonely place, maybe. All right? Mark 6. All right, so Martha worries, Mary worships. And Martha's probably also just wrapped around the axle about hospitality. Hospitality is legit. It's part of their culture. Always has been, still is. High value on that. Extremely important in the culture. Our culture, not driven by hospitality. Years ago, I went to Germany as a foreign exchange student. Had 4 years of German in high school. And then we had some people live with us and stay with us, visit. And they wrote a note in English they're learning. And so they wanted to say thank you for the hospitality, but they didn't know the word hospitality. They knew the word host and hostage. So they said thank you for the hostage, which is spelled hostage. So we're like, hostage? Who'd they take? Like, what? Very kind of them to thank for that. Anyway, so, the language barrier, it was just kind of fun. Anyway, Martha's worried of what people think if she doesn't extend this high-level hospitality because Jesus is special. Jesus isn't expecting that. He doesn't even want that. He wants Martha to drop the platter and just sit and listen, all right? That's just not how she's wired, so it's going to take some planning and intentionality for Martha to do that. It will not feel natural to Martha. Martha will not be at peace sitting at the feet of Jesus because for the first couple minutes, she'll be like, he doesn't have a drink. That plate, you know what I mean? That she's just thinking that way. So for her to do that is going to be, there's a tension there. For all of us task-oriented people, there's a tension there. Move through it, accept it, and just continue to drive at the point of what is Jesus saying, okay? And here's a bit of practical advice. If you're asking the question, what will people think? The answer is, who cares? Why would you empower people that probably don't even know you that well to drive your values in your life and your habits and therefore your future? And if they are close enough to shame you into a position, maybe you need new friends, or maybe you need to share Jesus with. I'm just saying, be careful about who you empower to run your life by thinking, oh, they will think this, they will think that. Have you ever done something crazy that other people think that's just crazy? My wife and I got married, and we took off for a 5-month trip. We spent, I think, $120 in 5 months on lodging. After like a couple nights in this little cabin in the Black Hills, we slept in a tent in the snow in Nevada, in a playground elementary school in Oregon. The police kicked us off. They said, you can't stay here. We're like, okay, we won't. But anyway, so just super budget, best thing we've ever done. I mean, the first 5 months, we're climbing all over the place and biking, and we went sea kayaking, rented a sea kayak off Washington, literally found an abandoned ship. I have a picture of it. I'm not going to show you, but anyway, it's this 300-foot ship called the Alexander. I'm like, we are going on board. And I was like, no. I'm like, yes. So we crawled up on board, and anyway, no one was there. Anyway, okay, my point is sometimes it's healthy to do things that other people are just like, are you sure? I think that's kind of you have to have wisdom with that. Don't do immoral things. That's not what we're talking about. But just don't be imprisoned by, other people think this is bad, so we can't do it. Okay? All right. So, live the life God has given you, not to impress neighbors. The life that you have, the life that I have, it's imperfect. There are rough spots, rust, and sharp edges, and things that we wish weren't there. Live the life with the God who's giving you his life, okay? Walking with Jesus through the storms, and that's where we have hope. Here's another good verse. I love this. 1 Timothy 4, practice these things, immerse yourself in them so that all may see your progress. Keep a close watch on two things, on yourself and on the teaching. Persist in this, for by doing so you will save both yourself and your hearers. We usually focus on the teaching. Teaching, good teaching. And that's important. What teaching are you listening to? We want to listen to good teaching. And now there's just gazillion YouTubes of bad teaching all over the web. So we have to be careful. Cuidado amigo, what we listen to, okay? And so, but the other thing is keep watch on yourself. That's interesting, isn't it? What are your proclivities? What are your tendencies? How are you choosing the good portion? When you're distracted from Jesus, where do you go? Right? It's different for all of us, but we want to know that and kind of have a game plan. So what are you following? What are you believing? Here's a great quote by John Owen. He who is not exactly skilled in the knowledge of himself will never be disentangled from one temptation or another all his days. Uselessness and scandal in believers are branches growing constantly on this root of unacquaintedness with their own frame and temper. It's exactly what I'm talking about. This is what Jesus is pointing to at Mary. You have a personality that's God-gifted and empowered for tasks, but sometimes that personality can drive you and you're blinded to the opportunities Jesus has right in front of you. So we want to know our own proclivities. We don't choose them, we choose our activities, all right? And so if you're a Martha, you love to-do lists, you're busy, you go to bed exhausted with a sense of satisfaction, and you just get up and you just run again, all right? Mary chose to spend time with Jesus in that context. So here's the question. How could Martha be more skilled? She could understand, I'm task-oriented, let's dial that down and spend time with people, okay? How could Mary be more skillful about herself. She could understand, I'm really driven to reflect, but man, Martha's really stressed out. I can just help her a little bit and maybe encourage her. Let's pull out the paper plates and Pop-Tarts. The double win, okay? All right, so that's just how they could do that. Here's another quote, The Art of War by Sun Tzu. If you know the enemy and you know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. So again, knowing yourself, how you're wired, and our culture is all full of self-love and soul care, and it can be a black hole of selfishness. And so be careful you don't react to that, but there is wisdom in knowing yourself. Just make sure you end up with Jesus, all right, and not just yourself in a dark closet, okay? That's good. Okay, quickly here, there are personality types. I love this because it makes sense to me. The DISC and that, the EFCJ, KLMNOQ, I don't know what those are, but my wife does. But anyway, the lion is asking what? The lion personality, task-oriented, in charge, a lot of bodies behind the success, and they're happy because they're getting things done. And the lion gets called into the boss's office, and the lion's like, what does he want? Does he know I'm busy? Okay. The otter is asking who? Fun, people, extroverted. Down here, there's people. What do we do? Parties, no boundaries. They say yes to everything, okay, but they don't show up. The boss calls them to the office, and the otter is like, maybe we're having a party, and he wants me to plan it, okay? The golden retriever is asking why. Well, why are we doing this? Is this safe? Is it better? Very loyal, high relational needs, very compassionate, avoids conflict. But the boss calls them into the office, and they're like, oh no, what did I do wrong? Okay? The beaver is making lists with a big, long to-do list. Okay, this is Martha, right? Organized, precise, details. They read all the instructions, and they make a PDF of the instructions and file it on their phone. They're never without. I have them here, but I'm just saying, every mower I have, every weed ear, it's just how beavers work, okay? The boss calls the beaver to the office, and the beaver is like, oh, she probably just needs my help with the spreadsheets, all right? Anyway. So it's just kind of a fun, quick thing on that. So wherever you are, just again, knowing how we're wired and how we get distracted can help us keep the main thing, which is trusting Jesus, okay? So what's your main thing? The main thing is trusting Jesus. And the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. The main thing is trusting Jesus. Not necessarily performing for Jesus, like Martha, trusting him. In fact, when you have a big, long list of things to do, to not do that and sit at Jesus' feet is an act of faith, because you're like, Lord, I got stuff to do, but I'll trust you with that right now. I want to spend time with you. That's an act of faith, okay? So Jesus is not condemning Martha's activity, and he's not necessarily commending Martha's either. Everyone doesn't have to be like Mary, okay? So here's a quick pro tip, how to think about your life, because we're so busy we have to prioritize things, because we're crashed with things. This is the worst way to manage your priorities. God's number one, family's number two, work through. Well, how come then I spend 8 hours a day sleeping? Obviously, sleep is number one, because that's where my time goes. So it locks you into this weird artificial list, and you're constantly feeling inadequate and inferior and like you're screwing up, okay? This is a much better way to think of your priorities. God is at the center of everything that we do. And radiating out from that, we all have a lot of different things. And the boundaries between the things move. Maybe you're in a season of college, and college is like huge. Or work, they move, okay? And they flex. And so family and work, whatever it is, all those things are fluid, but God is driving and touching all of them, okay? So that's just a different way to think about that. By the way, I have all these slides on that website in the newsletter. You can go and, if you just want to put that on your fridge, or maybe get a tattoo, that'd be great. All right. So again, people don't decide their futures. Our main thing decides our habits, and our habits drive our futures. So it's very important, our main things. In fact, parents can unwittingly transfer their fears to their children, because their main thing isn't trusting Jesus, it's freaking out over everything that's sideways. And kids grow up and they learn that. So this is super practical, all right? Bunch of questions. Mary and Martha have questions for us. What's distracting you from trusting Jesus? Are you okay being countercultural, or does that just freak you out of your mind? You know, if that does freak you out of your mind, maybe it's good assignment this week is just to say no to somebody or do something crazy. I don't know what it is. Not immoral, just, different for you. How can you see your habits have shaped your life? Look in the back, in your rearview mirror. Habits, your priorities, they shape who we are today, right? What might choosing the good portion which will not be taken away look like for you? All right? If you're sitting there with Jesus and he says, I'm inviting you to choose the good portion that will not be taken away. The context is God's word, so maybe how do we choose to sit at the feet of Jesus with his word? It could be as simple as go outside to a park with the Bible where there's nothing beeping and spending time with him. All right, Mary and Martha, I love it because I see myself here and I'm encouraged that God has gifted me. He's gifted you. You're not wired wrong, okay? But as disciples of Jesus, we all want to prioritize him above our need for reflection or our need for tasks, okay? Jesus is the main thing. Lord, thank you for Mary and Martha. Thank you for being so in the moment. You were able to just hit the pause button and instruct them all on the priority of spending time and listening to your words and not just getting busy with ministry and stuff like that. We are a busy people. I pray that you would be at the center of our busyness and you would even give us a different perspective of our tasks and obligations, inviting us to spend some time with you, listening to your words. May your Spirit lead us in that, and may you be the one that generates growth in us. Amen.